"Who is your father, little angel?" he asked the girl softly, kneeling to her level. "He never met him," she replied, her small voice steady but sad. Micah Okoro was a man who had everything: wealth, power, influence. He was the youngest billionaire in the country, building empires from nothing. And today he was out to make the huge deal of his life. A luxury resort that would redefine his legacy. But his life was about to change forever in ways he never imagined. Before we move forward, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories. Trust me, the twists keep coming. He was driving through a dusty small village with his team, scouting prime land for the new resort. His sleek black SUV rolled slowly past the bustling market, kicking up clouds of red dust that swirled in the hot air like secrets waiting to be uncovered. Then he saw her, a little girl no older than 6, standing barefoot beside the road in a faded school uniform, the fabric worn thin from too many washes. Her tiny hands held out a wooden tray of roasted yams, steam rising faintly, their earthy scent mixing with the market's chaos. Her face was tired, smudged with dirt, but she stood with quiet pride, chin lifted. Something about her, those wide brown eyes perhaps, made him look twice, his heart skipping oddly. Then his eyes locked on her necklace. His breath caught. It wasn't just any necklace. It was his, a silver chain with a carved lion pendant, intricate and unique. A custom-made piece. One he had given away 7 years ago to a woman he barely remembered now, a fleeting night in his wilder days. But how? He stepped out of the car slowly, the door thudding shut. People in the market stared, whispers rippling. Who was this suited stranger? Micah didn't care. He walked up to the girl, his polished shoes crunching gravel. "What's your name?" he asked gently, crouching down. She looked up with those wide brown eyes, unafraid. "Hope," she said simply. His voice shook as he pointed to the pendant. "Where did you get that necklace?" She looked down, her small fingers touching the lion softly, like a treasure. "My mama gave it to me," she said almost in a whisper, her voice carrying the weight of unspoken stories. He knelt fully now, eye level. "Where's your father?" She blinked, tilting her head. "I've never met him." Micah froze, a chill running through him despite the sun. Then she added quietly, "Mama is very sick, so I sell yams after school to help." Micah Okoro had closed many high-stakes deals in his life, boardrooms shaking under his command, but this felt like something he couldn't afford to ignore. A mystery pulling at his soul. But what truth was hidden behind that innocent face? Micah felt something twist in his chest, an ache he couldn't explain, like a forgotten echo. He looked at the little girl again, Hope, standing there with her tray of yams and those tired, resilient eyes that seemed to see right through him. He took out his leather wallet, bought every single piece of yam she had, handing over more cash than she could count, then said gently, "Come, I'll drop you home. It's not safe to walk alone in this crowd." But she shook her head firmly, clutching her tray. "No thank you. Mama said not to talk to strangers. I only sell and go." Her voice was soft but unyielding, wise beyond her years. Micah chuckled nervously, surprised by her caution. "I'm not a stranger. I'm just someone who wants to help." But Hope had already packed up her tray neatly, the yams wrapped in leaves. "Thank you, sir," she said with a quick, polite bow, her small frame turning away. And just like that, she slipped into the busy market crowd, vanishing amid the colorful fabrics and haggling voices. Micah stood there speechless, the weight of the encounter lingering. He turned to his driver, urgency in his tone. "Follow her quietly. Don't let her see you. I want to know where she lives." The driver nodded and stepped out of the SUV, blending into the throng. Micah waited, the market's noise buzzing around him. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10. Then the driver returned, shaking his head in confusion. "She's gone, sir." Micah frowned, leaning forward. "What do you mean gone?" She turned into an alley near the fabric stalls and then, she vanished. "I searched everywhere. Alleys, stalls, even asked around. She's fast like a shadow." Micah leaned back in his seat, eyes scanning the fading crowd, his mind racing like a storm. This little girl wasn't just any child. She had disappeared like a ghost, leaving behind nothing but burning questions and a necklace that screamed of his past. Who was her mother, and why did fate keep circling back? Micah couldn't sleep that night. The image haunted him. The little girl in her worn school uniform, the glint of the necklace against her skin, the mention of a missing father. It all swirled in his mind like a puzzle missing its center. So the next morning he returned to the village, determination stealing his steps. But this time his hands weren't empty. He brought a small colorful bag stuffed with thoughtful gifts, fresh school books with crisp pages, shiny black shoes that gleamed, a soft teddy bear with button eyes, a sturdy lunchbox, and 2 enchanting storybooks filled with adventures. He found Hope at the same spot by the road, balancing her tray of yams steadily, the sun warming her face. When she saw him approaching, her eyes narrowed suspiciously, but a spark of recognition flickered. "You came back," she said, tilting her head. "I told you," he replied with a warm smile, crouching down. "I'm not a bad man." He gently placed the bag in front of her on the ground. "What is this?" she asked, her voice laced with caution, peeking curiously. "Open it," he said softly, watching her small hands. She peeked inside and gasped, her eyes widening in wonder. Books, shoes, a teddy bear. Everything shiny and new. Her guard dropped like a wall crumbling, a shy smile breaking through. "Are these really all for me?" Micah nodded, his heart warming. "Only if you accept them." She looked down thoughtfully, then up at him again, deciding. "If you're not bad, I'll take you to see my mama. But no lies. If you lie, I won't talk to you again." He smiled, relief flooding him. "Deal." They walked quietly through winding dirt paths, past thatched roofs and curious glances, until they reached a small, broken hut at the edge of the village. The walls were cracked and leaning, patched with mud. The roof sagged under rusted tin and old cloth that flapped in the breeze. Hope knocked gently on the weathered door. "Mama, someone came." The wooden door creaked open slowly, hinges groaning. A tired woman stood there, her skin pale from fever, eyes half shut with exhaustion, until they locked onto Micah's. She froze, the air thickening. He stared back, a flicker of recognition stirring deep. Something passed between them, something from another lifetime, heavy and unspoken. But who was she to him, and why did her gaze hold such pain? The woman at the door didn't speak at first. Her hand trembled as she gripped the wooden frame for support, knuckles white. Her breath quickened, fever or fear. Micah couldn't tell, the hut's dim light casting shadows on her face. He stepped forward slowly, umbrella forgotten in the doorway. "You must be her mother." "I'm Micah." She cut him off with a single shaky word, "Grace." He blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "My name is Grace," she said, her voice dry and quiet, like wind over dry leaves. Not just her name, it felt like a revelation. Micah nodded politely, still unsure why she was staring at him like a ghost from her past had materialized. But for Grace it was no ghost. It was him, the man who had vanished without a trace. But what buried memory was resurfacing now? Flashback. 7 years ago in a small city club pulsing with life. Music loud and thumping, lights low and swirling like stars. Grace was young, carefree, dancing alone with laughter bubbling in her chest, her dress flowing. He stood by the bar in a sharp black suit, watching her with quiet fire in his eyes, drawn like a moth. They talked over clinking glasses, they drank sweet cocktails that warmed them, they danced until the music faded into the night. In the privacy of a small hotel room, soft sheets and dim lamps, he gave her the necklace, a silver chain with a carved lion pendant, cool against her skin. "For the strongest girl I've ever met," he whispered, his breath warm on her neck. That night she gave him her body, hearts racing in the dark. By morning he was gone. No note, no number, no name, just silence and the necklace left behind like a promise unkept. Back to the present. Grace stared at him now, her voice shaking with long-held emotion. "You don't remember, do you?" Micah's brows furrowed in confusion. He scanned her face, searching for familiarity. "I'm sorry, have we met before?" Grace held in a bitter laugh, her eyes flashing hurt. "You really don't remember." But she remembered everything, the joy, the betrayal, the child that followed. And now so would he. But how deep did the wound run, and would truth heal or destroy? Micah sat on a small wooden stool inside the tiny room, the air thick with the scent of herbs, lingering smoke from a fire, and the sharp tang of sickness. Hope poured water from a jug into a chipped cup and placed it beside her mother's thin mat on the floor. "Mama, drink, you're sweating again," she said softly, her small hand gentle. Micah watched quietly, the scene tugging at him. Then he turned to Grace, his voice soft but firm. "How did your daughter get that necklace?" Grace looked up, her lips cracked and dry from fever. She paused for a long second, eyes flickering away. Then she said, "I found it on the street outside the market." Micah leaned forward, locking eyes with her intently. "That's not true," he said evenly. "That piece was custom-made. Only one exists. I gave it to someone years ago." Grace looked away, staring at the cracked wall. "Maybe I was lucky. Things get lost all the time." Her hands trembled slightly on the mat, betraying her. Micah could see it, she was hiding something big, a secret coiled tight. But then she started coughing, a deep, painful rattle from her chest that echoed in the small space. Hope rushed to her side, rubbing her back with worry. "Mama, please rest." Micah stood and pulled out a thick envelope from his jacket pocket, the paper crisp. "There's money in here, for medicine, for food. Take it." Grace pushed it away weakly, her eyes flashing defiance. "I don't need your charity." He frowned, holding it steady. "It's not charity." She looked up, her voice sharp despite her weak body, cutting through the air. "You don't get to walk back in and fix things with cash. Keep it." Micah didn't say another word, tucking it away. But inside he felt it, the weight of something unfinished, a thread from his past unraveling. This woman was hiding a truth, and he wasn't going to leave until he pulled it free. What lie was she protecting, and at what cost? Micah came back the next day and the next and the day after that, his schedule bending around the village pool. Every afternoon after her school ended, Hope would find him waiting near the yam stand with a warm smile, a colorful storybook tucked under his arm, or a snack like fresh fruit that made her eyes light up. At first she was shy, peeking from behind her tray, but soon they were laughing together like old friends, the market's bustle fading around them. She showed him her scribbled notebooks, pages filled with careful drawings. He helped her with homework, his pen guiding her hand. "Why is English so hard?" she groaned one day, sticking out her tongue at a word. "Even rich people struggle with it," he joked, making her giggle, the sound like music. Sometimes they just sat quietly on a low bench, sharing roasted maize, its smoky sweetness filling the air, and he would watch the village life pass by, women balancing baskets, children chasing chickens, something simple he hadn't done in years amid his high-rise world. In those moments, Micah felt something strange bloom in his chest, not the pride of power or the thrill of deals, but peace. Real peace, the kind no mansion or fortune had ever given him, warm and grounding. But peace doesn't come without cost. What shadows from his empire were closing in? One afternoon, as the sun beat down, his assistant pulled him aside near the SUV, whispering sharply, sweat beading on his brow. "Sir, this is the third meeting you've missed this week." "I'm handling something important," Micah said calmly, glancing back at Hope. "Sir, the board is worried. The media noticed you in the slums again. Photos are circulating. Investors are asking questions, pressuring for updates on the resort deal." Micah sighed, his mind torn. He glanced back at Hope. She was sitting on a low step nearby, drawing shapes with a stick in the red dirt, humming a simple song only children knew, carefree. The assistant leaned in closer, voice low. "Whatever this is, it's not just business anymore, is it?" Micah didn't answer because deep down he already knew. This little girl was pulling him away from his empire, thread by thread, and he was letting her, drawn by an invisible bond. But how long before his world demanded him back? Micah sat on the balcony of his grand mansion that evening, the city lights twinkling below like distant stars, a glass of rich red wine in his hand, the smooth silk of his robe cool against his skin. It was a perfect life by every standard, opulent, untouchable. Across from him sat Tiana, elegant and stunning, with flawless makeup and a designer dress, the kind of woman everyone expected him to marry, her laugh polished. They were flipping through glossy wedding catalogs, pages turning softly. "This one's nice," Tiana said, showing him a photo of a beach ceremony, waves crashing in the background. "Simple but classy." Micah nodded slowly, but his eyes weren't on the pictures, the white sands, the veils. His mind wasn't even in the room. It was back in the village, with a small girl drawing in the dirt, humming, and a woman who coughed too much, hiding pain behind her weary silence. Tiana placed her manicured hand on his arm, her touch light. "Micah, you're not here. Talk to me, what's going on?" He forced a small smile, the wine's warmth not reaching his eyes. "Just work. A lot's happening this week." She looked at him for a long moment, searching, then nodded, not convinced but tired of pressing. Later that night, Micah walked into his lavish bedroom and opened a drawer quietly. Inside was a small worn toy lion, faded fur and a stitched smile. Hope had given it to him that morning, pressing it into his hand. "For when you're sad," she had said with a grin. He held it in his palm now, staring at it like it was made of pure gold, its softness grounding him. Then he carefully placed it back and shut the drawer with a soft click. He climbed into bed beside Tiana, her breathing even, but his heart, it was already somewhere else, miles away in the dust. But what if Tiana sensed the shift, and what secret might she hold? Rain poured from the sky like it had a story to tell, heavy sheets drumming on the earth, turning paths to slick mud. Micah stepped out of his car, holding a sturdy umbrella that shielded him from the downpour's chill. The village looked quieter than usual under the gray veil, the kind of quiet that carries heavy secrets, the air thick with petrichor. He walked toward Grace's hut, his shoes squelching, carrying a bag with food staples, strong medicine bottles, and a small math book Hope had been struggling with, its pages crisp. As he reached the front door, water dripping from the eaves, he heard her voice inside, soft but clear, laced with raw emotion. "I don't think Micah remembers anything," Grace said into her phone, her tone heavy. "But he keeps coming. He brings her gifts. He talks to her like she's already his." Micah stopped dead, umbrella tilting, rain pattering louder. He didn't knock. He just stood there, heart pounding harder than the storm, the words sinking in like cold water. There was a pause on the other end of the phone, tense. Then Grace's next words sliced through him like lightning. "It's strange, you know. He doesn't even know she's his daughter." Micah's breath caught in his throat. He whispered to himself, "Our daughter." The rain couldn't drown out the sound of that truth crashing down. He staggered back a step, mud splashing. Everything suddenly made sense. The necklace's gleam, the girl's familiar face in her smiles, the way he felt whole when she laughed, the unspoken weight in Grace's eyes. Micah had spent weeks falling in love with a little girl, drawn by instinct. And now he knew why, because she was his blood, his own, and he had walked away from her before she was even born, oblivious. But how would this revelation shatter his carefully built world? Micah couldn't wait any longer, the truth burned too hot. His heart was racing, his shirt soaked through from the rain's edge, clinging cold, but he didn't care. He pushed open the door to Grace's small hut with a creak, his chest tight, eyes burning with emotion. Grace stood up from the floor abruptly, shocked, her phone slipping from her hand. "Micah, why didn't you tell me?" he shouted, his voice cracking like thunder outside. "Why didn't you tell me she was mine?" Tears spilled down her cheeks as she tried to hold her ground, fists clenched. "Because I didn't want your pity," she snapped back, voice fierce despite her frailty. "Because you left me once without a word. I thought you'd vanish again. I thought if I told you, you'd come for her and leave us broken all over. I couldn't risk that." "I didn't know," Micah whispered, stepping closer, rain dripping from his hair. "I didn't know I had a daughter. But now I do, and I feel it in my soul." He dropped to one knee right there, not caring that the floor was wet and muddy, or that Hope was peeking from behind the curtain with wide, silent eyes, the rain's rhythm outside mirroring his pulse. "I love her. I want to raise her. I want to be in her life every day." He looked up at Grace, his voice shaking with raw vulnerability. "And I want you too. I don't want to miss one more day. Please, will you marry me?" Grace covered her mouth, overwhelmed, her body trembling as sobs escaped, joy, fear, years of pain colliding. Just then his phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. A voice note from Tiana lit up the screen, her name glowing. "Micah, please don't make any decisions until we talk. I have something important to tell you." He stared at the phone, frozen. One choice would break a heart. The other might break his own, trapped between past and future. But which path would he take? Micah didn't say a word for a long moment, the hut's dim light flickering from a single bulb. He looked at Grace, the woman who once gave him her heart without hesitation. Then he turned slowly and saw her, Hope standing quietly by the doorway, her small hands clutching the curtain tightly, her eyes full of innocent questions, rain pattering outside like unanswered whispers. She took a tiny step forward, barefoot on the cool floor. "Are you really my dad?" Micah felt his heart break open and come alive all at once, a flood of love. He knelt down fully and opened his arms wide. She ran to him without waiting for confirmation, her small body crashing into his. He held her close, tightly, like he'd waited his whole life to feel that embrace, her hair damp from the storm, smelling of yams and earth. "Yes, my star," he whispered into her hair, voice thick. "And I will never leave you again." Grace wiped silent tears from her cheeks, watching the reunion unfold. Micah stood slowly, still holding Hope's hand. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the ring he had been carrying since yesterday, the one meant for Tiana, its diamond catching the light. He placed it gently on the wooden table between them, a symbol of choice. "I love you," he said softly to Grace, eyes locked on hers. "But first I must end something else." He turned, walked out the door into the evening light, the rain easing to a drizzle. The wind had stopped. The sky was quiet, holding its breath. But miles away, a sleek black car was racing down the muddy road toward the village, tires splashing. Inside sat Tiana, her hand resting protectively on her stomach, Eyes red from crying, determination hardening her gaze. She whispered to herself, "He's mine. He just doesn't know about the baby yet." Tiana was pregnant and Micah did not know yet. What will happen when he finds out? He will be trapped between two impossible choices, his secret daughter and her mother Grace, or Tiana, who is carrying the son he never knew he wanted. Share your thoughts in the comments. What should he do? Who deserves his heart? Subscribe for part 2, the drama explodes.